Welcome everyone to another PD Chat Show. Hope everyone is well. Again, joined me is the notorious Mr. Pete Cater. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. All better for being here.
Our viewers out there in Palace Trump Camp Land.
Palace Drum Land, yes. Loads of people coming on. Obviously, welcome. Rob's not here, is he? So I forgot about that one. Force of habit. But obviously, as you can see at the bottom there, we have our very special guest, Michael Schack. Michael, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. So, couple of things. Oli Usiskin, sorry, Graham, Kenneth Russell Everett, Mike Tuppen. Hi guys, thanks so much for watching. Remember, you can put all your comments and everything in the comment page section there, and I'll get through as many as I possibly can. Questions or anecdotes, or just suggestions or stuff. But we're here. So everybody knows us. We always start with like a subject. So Michael, we're just going to generally open up the whole conversation. So, but I'm going to come to you first. I think it's quite. We've covered so much ground on these chat shows since May, so end of April, May time. But we haven't discussed this one, and it's really nice that you're on to actually discuss this. It's where is the future of drumming going? So basically, we're thinking it's like, what is the boundaries? Are there any boundaries being pushed at the moment? Who are pushing them? Can it go any further than it is already, technically wise as well as like technology wise as well? Where can you see? So, for instance, you get in your time machine, you go 20 years, 30 years down the line. Where can you see drumming actually being in the future?
Well, it's a question that pops up every year. In the beginning of the year, when NAMM show happens or any trade show happens, there's always people who say, wow, this is amazing, this new stuff that's come out and so many new plugins. And drumming is going to continue to evolve like it always has, together with technology, but also together with music styles and young people discovering and mixing and mashing up more extreme ideas, like maybe big band and drum and bass, or hip hop and whatever political thing that's gonna happen. It's always gonna be evolving as long as music evolves. And drumming is always one of those one of those crafts that has always evolved a little faster than the other instruments. Like, for instance, when we remember when the drum computer came up, all drummers were like, oh, we're gonna get replaced, and this doesn't have any feel, and so on. And now it's in most cases it's the drummer's best friend. On the other hand, who would have imagined like 10, 15 years ago that drummers are actually buying laptops to be able to run VST drumming software on there while playing their drum pads? Even now, drummers are learning how to connect USB things while guitar players are still reading the manual. So, it's been amazing. On top of this, it's not only the young drummers that are doing this. It's most likely the older drummers who can actually afford those systems and who are looking for ways, especially in this pandemic time, to continue playing, being stuck at home, buying electronic drum sets of any brand, and the brands, of course, thanks to the success of these instruments, are able to invest more budget into new things that might come up. 5G is coming. What's going to happen with us using smartphones and drums together? I know a little bit about this, but I can not tell you, but there's a lot of things that are happening all the time in the pipeline. Also, smaller engineers who are, experimenting with infrared instead of MIDI, for instance. So the possibilities are gonna be endless, always.
Fantastic. Pete, I'm going to come to you because obviously Michael's talked a lot about the technology side going forward and obviously musical styles. What about actual techniques, like your physical person? Is there, we've seen some fantastic people, like, spawn out of these kind of generations of, we first saw was like your Billy Cobhams and all that kind of stuff, and obviously now we've got your gospel guys. Technically wise, can we get any further? Can we push more boundaries?
Definitely, definitely. I think there's a lot of uncharted water that drummers haven't really even begun to think about. And I think a lot of the reason for this is because some of the approaches to teaching that we have in place are they haven't really, some of the fundamentals haven't really changed that much. When you think about how we deal with technique and independence and things like that, there hasn't been a great deal that's been particularly new and innovative, probably in about 40 years. And I think a lot of the future of that side of the actual techniques, mechanics, and what we do conceptually, I think some of that is just gonna come out of this sort of random collision of the mass consciousness and ideas, and some of it's going to come out of the past, reevaluating some of what's been played in years gone by, and just putting a kind of 21st century slant on it. I'm a complete technique obsessive.
Yeah.
And I'm at the moment, I'm really very, and this is the great, to me, the unintended consequence and advantage of having been basically under house arrest since the end of March, is that I've actually had the time to really focus on these, what's going on technically, and just looking into history and looking at the present and reevaluating 100 years of recorded music and seeing what can be kind of pulled out of there and kind of replanted and reseeded for the future. And to me, this, I've hardly done any gigs. I've done a very small amount of studio work and some online teaching, but it's actually, in a strange way, it's actually a very exciting time. And I think people need to, in a broader sense, look away from the very negative implications that there'd be for our industry in this time, and actually look, you know what, you take this circumstance and you just kind of look at it from a different angle. And if your eyes are fully open, you'll see there's all kinds of advantages. It's like some of the hierarchies of the industry have been flattened, and we don't, where certain players and traditions and types of music and certainly industry standards were all very set in stone prior to March of this year. It's almost like all bets are off, and in a very positive way. I think for the future, like anything at all is possible.
I believe so. Because obviously, we haven't been doing much. We spend a lot of time, obviously, on our devices and stuff like that. Which obviously, Michael, you've talked about. We can integrate, 5G. Where we're going to go with that? Well, because obviously you've got always kind of like you're one step ahead because obviously you're a big guy with Roland, developing all these fantastic stuff. But just on technically wise, there's a couple of people which I just think are just like, have developed something else, technically wise. One of them is Yodi Medar, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who has come up with some absolutely phenomenal stuff. You just can't believe what he does sometimes. Independence as well as, sort of the push and pull technique. Everyone's like going about this push and pull technique and everything.
No, I don't use, the only thing I use push pull for is opening and closing doors. And it's actually very handy because they have little signs on the doors that tell you which one to use. But to me, and I know what you mean about Yoni Madar. Again, he's quite a polarizing figure. And it falls very much into two camps. But what I'm seeing, and I've said this on the chat show a number of times before, where I'm seeing the real breakout innovation in like hand technique, it's all in Brazil. What some of those drummers are doing down there is, I mean, you start with somebody like Kiko Freitas and work your way out from, because he has a strong presence, he's very accessible, and he's an amazing player. But some of the things that are coming out of Brazil technically are like, it's like science fiction hand technique, and I love all that.
Mm. Michael, have you who's the people you've been watching for sort of for technical wise? Do you think, wow, they've got something else, bringing out into the world?
I'm actually looking at the youngsters, not at older drummers, because the youngsters, I'm not looking particularly on technique, but also groove and the way they actually turn their crappy drum sets into incredible musical instruments. I've been watching Dominic McNabb. Dominic McNabb is a young South African drummer. He's barely 12 or 13 years old, and he's getting into a phenomena status from South Africa, not from the States, not from Europe. He's just a young guy. He has a very simple drum set, and he kicks ass. And those are the guys that actually inspire me most, because they're so young. First and for all, they're very innocent, and they don't think about technique. They don't have the theory of Muller and push-pull and whatever. They just play. And that kind of reminds me of when I started. I didn't care at all about technique. I just knew, this is a single stroke and this is a paradiddle, and if you put those two together, you can play a groove on a hi-hat, a snare, and a kick drum. And that's probably the reason why I have these movements happening in my style, which are not economical, which probably are technically totally wrong, but on the other side, they make out a sound, and that's what I'm looking for a little bit. Not only the technique by itself, but also the drumming personality, which inspires me, and that's why I, especially on Instagram, when you see those young guys, coming on, and also through my connection with Romeo, they tend to invite really, really young players now, and also lots of female drummers who have 500 million followers on TikTok and just play cover songs, and they really kick ass, and they also probably are not thinking about the technical aspect, but on the other hand, they have an amazing groove just playing along to music. And that's something that is really evolving now. You see a lot of young drummers actually making program music sound live. And that's always something that's always been very close to my heart. And that's also a technical thing that evolves, because when you're playing on top of a play-along, you tend to go a little bit, louder, and you tend to go a little bit more physical. So in the end, when you see these young drummers evolve, for instance, Dominic McNabb, and you see his first couple of clips on Instagram, and you see him now, like 1.5 years later, it's already another drummer. And the potential of these youngsters, I think, is huge. It is huge because they cherish social media. They are practicing in the middle of a pandemic. They didn't experience international touring or local touring with bands yet. They're just trying to give their best by themselves as solo drummers. And that is something I think is really positive for drumming overall.
Definitely. We've got a couple of hellos. Claudia Mora Kempe. Mark King.
Oh, yeah.
Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, she's following me on Instagram.
Fantastic.
Really
Welcome.
Really good drummer.
Welcome. Mark King, Paulo Pinheiro, Dave Libson. Hello, Dave. Thank you very much for watching. Robin Melville, David L, John Viv Roberts, Marking Archie Rhodes. Dave said, word Michael, who cares are about technique. The noise is what
I
is
didn't say
important.
that, though. I didn't say that. I
Yeah.
do care about technique, because in the end, technique will help you to last longer.
Yeah. Brian Borowski, thank you very much. Guys, if you are watching for the first time, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a privilege to see new people come and share this Saturday evening with us. If you are new, please go to our Facebook page and basically like or follow what we're doing, because obviously we're building up a fantastic drumming community here throughout the world, actually, now since lockdown, which has been absolutely amazing for us. So anything that obviously you want to see, it's on the Facebook. And also, if you go to www.palishDrumClinic.com, you'll see everything basically is on there that we've been doing, and lots of other stuff that's actually going to come up in the future very, very shortly, including our camp, which obviously is on the 19th to the 21st of February. So you can go sign up there as well. And if you want amazing special discount, then please go to the Palace Drumming Club page, which is a group on Facebook, and you can get a discount code from there. So, fantastic. Thanks for it, guys. Obviously, saying hello and everything else. Joe Morris is saying, tech won't replace creativity. Thoughts, Pete?
Again, sorry?
Tech won't replace creativity. Thought?
Well, no, but it just kind of adds to the palette, really. And, anybody who knows anything about me at all knows that I'm a very kind of simple and basic player. I use a very simple and basic set of drums, and I haven't worn it out in terms of the potential. But anything that adds another dimension to playing. So somebody made a remark about technique in the comments a moment ago. Technique is a way of making playing easy. That's what it's there for. Okay, the more technique you have, the more you can do with less effort. That's what it's for. Technique for its own sake is meaningless. Technique is how much ability you have to make things happen musically. Because otherwise, if you just obsessing over how many single strokes you can play in a minute, and then you probably need to find something else to do with your life. But I think anything that adds a new dimension to what we can do as players is very welcome. And as soon as I've worn out everything I think is possible to do with 4 drums and a handful of cymbals, then I'm going to be going down that road. But I think nature may have taken its course before that happens. Although if I could summarize that in a way, the most important thing that all of us can do is keep an open mind. Okay, and I'm always telling my students to listen to drummers from go to YouTube and just find some music from Africa, from South America, from the Far East, whatever, and find some music from different eras, from different decades, and because all of it is going to add to your range as a musician. The more you know, the more you can do. Whether it's how many songs you know, how many different players you've checked out, how many different genres you've checked out. The more you know, the more information you have at your disposal. And where creating music is concerned, knowledge is power. If you only know if you can only play like a C, G, and F major triad, your songwriting ability is not going to go very far. So to kind of translate that back to drums, the more you know, the more it's possible for you to do.
Mm. Well, Status Quo will have something to say about that, Pete, I think.
Are they here? Are they with us?
No, sorry, no. Joe Morris actually just basically, she meant technology. Michael, do you want to come in on this one? Basically, technology won't, just get the phrase, won't replace creativity. Really? I think it's the other way round. Technology actually may make us more creativity. More creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If technology wouldn't have been there, we wouldn't have any crossover genre between rock and hip hop or whatever. If technology wasn't there, even Rage Against the Machine probably wouldn't have existed, you know, because even there, if you go back to the 80s where hip hop surfaced, you know, and those guys were just rhyming on top of drum computers, and then some guys started to play this live, you know, a whole movement started of challenging the drum machine. You know, man, we're gonna take this drum machine and we're just gonna have it play a cowbell and maybe a clap, and then we're gonna play on top. A very good example also, Fateless Live, you know, from the UK. An incredible band. They were just playing traditional instruments on top of their electronical backing tracks, and everybody loved it. There were even small earthquakes happening when they were playing their tunes at festivals because everybody was jumping up and down. You know, there's one thing, DJ producers, they produce music in a totally different way as compared to musicians. They start with the specific sound of a kick drum. Never before any drummer would spend that much time, any recording engineer would spend like years in coming up with this specific personal kick sound. And now they do. And actually drummers who are a little bit involved in electronic music, they and I understand why. Because it's in the key of the song, because it's a specific vibe, it's specific frequencies that actually trigger you. And on top of that, they actually totally adapt the bass part to this kick drum sound. So I'm as an acoustic drummer, I'm doing this all the time. I'm doing side chaining when I record drums, you know, like kick drums actually triggering a compressor, which is lowering down the volume of the bass note. So kick and bass are never sounding together, and this then creates more energy in a track. Those evolutions are not gonna stop, and it will make drums sound better, it will make drummers sound better, but on top of that, it will keep people dancing more on top of hybrid music like semi-live played or totally programmed. It doesn't matter. So creativity is exploding. Even now with COVID, you see so many young and older people just putting online their music even for free. You know, and with Spotify, that's another thing that's happening technologically. We can discover so much more music than just relying on what the good old record labels and record companies were just telling us to buy. You know, there's more people listening to Spotify than to the top 50 charts.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Obviously, I can see some comments. I'm going to read them out in a second. But what about your thoughts? Put them on there. Are you scared of basically sort of technology? Are you technophobe, or are you just basically a traditionalist kind of thing? How do you see things, and how do you see basically your own drumming, basically where it's going to basically take you, creativity, or basically, you know, 30 years' time, if you're still playing, lucky enough to be playing in 30 years' time, where can you actually see yourself, you know, behind the drum set doing? We've got James Angel, thank you very much for watching. There's just some conversations happening, it's fantastic. There's just one I want to just touch on. Apart from, I don't know how much you paid Richie Burns, Pete, but he says you're an excellent player. I would say checks in the post, but just good wishes nowadays. I expect it's thin air, isn't it? No one working. Technology is great, David L. Brilliant. Brian Borowski is basically saying, Michael's talking about technique. I think it's important for the endurance of playing the song correctly without getting worn out, because if you're playing 3 sets in a 4-hour span, your arm's going to kind of get worn out sometimes. Well, that's good. Obviously, it's the endurance side of it, isn't it, as well? But I just want to go on, so, you know, you see these people, and I'm one of these people that will do it as well. We take the things to the extreme. Why? Well, because obviously when we play the slower, sort of easier stuff, it is easier. It's easier to do it. So basically, you take it, and it's like I like to sort of describe it as like you've got a very expensive diver's watch. You can spend thousands, hundreds, millions on a diver's watch. Which will go it's like 100 meters below the sea. I'm not going to go 100 litres to be on the sea, but it's nice to know I can. So it's in a reserve, isn't it? I suppose just when you need it, it's there. It's like I suppose it's the power of on British roads. I think it's slightly different, obviously, where Michael is, because you can just nip over to Germany on the autobahns. It's that
I'm in Belgium.
I said you can nip over the road to Germany.
No. I'm in Belgium. Germany is not Belgium. Let me.
No, Michael. I said you can pop over. You can pop over to Germany on the autobahns.
We can pop over.
You can pop over because what I was saying is that it's like in here. It's like 70 miles an hour. What's the point of owning a Ferrari? Because you can get very, very quickly to A and B. A and B basically 70 miles an hour.
That's maybe that.
But it was all that power and reserve, isn't it? So it's that endurance. Is basically everything when you need it, isn't it? That's basically what I'm saying. So.
Well, there's one disadvantage to all the technology is that a lot of people are buying things but not even using 20% of it. That's the other thing. There's so many things popping up online, and then it's Black Friday and Yellow Sunday and Green Monday, whatever. And everybody's buying things without even using 50% of what they already have in their laptops or at their drum sets also. There was a time, especially in the beginning, and at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, it was all about endorsements. Every drummer who was serious about his playing should get an endorsement and should get the latest Zildjian K custom splashes, which were only 6-inch, and then combine it with the piggyback cymbals, and then also on others. The brands were taking over. They were saying, we're gonna put this out and we'll promote it, and and then everybody was buying piccolo snare drums when Dave Reckel became really popular, and then suddenly the double pedals, it's a little bit of a typical thing that people are also eager about the owning things sometimes. But it's the owners, the buyers of those instruments who actually own the technique and the ability to integrate it in their playing. Those are the winners. Even with smaller drum sets can be totally hip, but if you have like the right tools and you really know them, that's also what you see on the social media. You see now young people just having a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, one cymbal, and maybe a trigger and a sampling pad, and they get more views than the guy who's using 17 crash cymbals and the big tom setups, because that's not interesting anymore. The interesting things is, how can I do more with less things? And that's a really nice evolution I see as well.
Do you think there's people like Nate Smith? I'll come to you, Pete. It's like they have in the last 5 or 6 years, really, they've really come to the forefront, haven't they? People watching because Nate literally is hat, snare, bass, isn't he?
Yeah, and Nate is somebody who I follow very closely, and the Kinfolk albums are great. And like, this is the stuff my students want to talk about, and they say, yeah, Nate Smith, okay, all right, let's go back, let's take a look at Chris Dave, and then see the lineage that goes from Chris Dave to Nate Smith, and then go back a stage further, and see why Tony Williams is important in this whole timeline, and this is why I said about listening to music from different eras. And my final year degree students, they have to study a particular drummer as part of it for their final recital. And a couple of years ago, one guy, Adam, was studying Nate Smith, another guy, Ben, was studying Chris Dave. And they didn't, and it was only when I sat them down in the classroom and said, right, look at this video of Tony in 1980. with his band, with like Wallace Roney and Billy Pierce and those guys. Look at this video of Alvin from the different drummer documentary from like the early 70s, and now you'll understand where it all came from, how it came down from one generation to the next, and having that broader understanding of the history of music is so informative. If you only listen to records from the last 6 months, then you again it's like having not very much technique. The more you know, the more you can do. That is in all of music. I just, as a sidebar, just this week I've been asked to compose some music for a documentary film, and because during the pandemic I've been spending a lot of probably as much time with the piano as I have with the drums. My skill set has really expanded, and I know that I'm going to be able to compose better music for this documentary film than I would have been able to 6 months ago, because I know more stuff, and knowing more stuff is powerful. It's empowering, And don't get into this rubbish that people talk about. You're a technique player or a group player. Be both. It's empowering. Knowledge is going to help you be a better musician, and you just drink it in. Just absorb it from every possible source that you can, and all this stuff. You're going to absorb it all differently to any other musician who ever picked up a pair of sticks, and so you're going to take on this knowledge, and you're going to kind of mold it and recast it in your own image, and that's where your identity comes from. And if you just listen to the same half a dozen records that a whole load of other people do, or play the same few chops that a whole load of other people do, you're never going to find that. So get clever, get smart, get out there and start really, really digging around and looking in some different places, because there's so much out there that you can benefit from.
Talking about knowledge, we've got a question. Well, I suppose it's a little thing.
Can I just say one thing about Nate Smith?
Yes, please.
I think one of the guys who actually was a little bit even more impactful to the general public is Questlove.
Yeah.
Roots.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, he was the one with a kick, a snare, and one ride cymbal who was playing the big festival stages. So he made those small setups coming back, but to a very large crowd, because they were actually doing amazing live shows at all the big festivals, already nearly 20 years ago. And on top of this, he became like a TV personality.
Well, so that's right. Yeah, that visibility.
With the late shows. And Questlove is such an amazing drummer, but most and for all, he's an incredible music know-all, because he's mainly a very, very, very broad thinking, but very documented DJ who's also a drummer. And you see it in everything. He's a band leader in this TV show. He's been touring lots with the Roots. They're doing crazy things still. And, that's another good example of a drummer who actually, despite being in the back of the band, who actually took the lead of a lot of things, and took the lead also to young people to inspire them. Hey, you don't have to have a lot of, you don't need to play every genre. You don't need to play all the cymbals in the world. You can just do it with this, but be good at it, be personal, and be very soulful. And that's another good example, together with Nate Smith, of a drummer where less is more is actually just right there in front of your face.
Yeah. I think in a kind of different way, Mark Giuliano ticks that box too.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And we actually had on the Players Drum Clinic, we had Steve Lyman come over a couple of years ago. Obviously, he is that kind of that Mark Giuliano kind of, I suppose, category. If don't like putting people in categories, but it's very, very simple. But what he's trying to do is, you listen to him. Sometimes you can't. You're trying to work out what you can do. Then he explains. You go, blimey, okay, right, here we go. Do you know what I mean? It's boundaries, I suppose, it's not necessarily technique, is it? It's like, obviously it's up there, and it's obviously if the gates are open there, where are we going? Well, nobody knows, because obviously we've got more people are coming up with different stuff, so people think in different ways, all kinds of stuff. So it's very, very, fascinating. But as I say, knowledge
Absolutely.
is, yeah. Knowledge is obviously the thing, but talking about knowledge, Martin Graham, I use a Roland kit on most of my on most of my recordings, and love the fact that I can change the sound on any of the elements of the kit to fit the track. So for me, technology is fantastic. I want to learn more about hybrid kits and live and recording situations. Michael, have you done anything for that on videos at all for people to watch?
Absolutely. I did plenty of videos. Most of them are actually accessible through drumeo.com. You get a subscription and then you can follow all my lessons. So I did lessons on hybrid drums. I actually just recently did a lesson last Wednesday where I actually incorporated pure technology into an acoustic setup and how you can easily do it. There's plenty of things out there. Apart from the fact that I'm a little bit known of just playing V drums, but I still 50% of my work is acoustic, but always combined with electronics anyway. I did specific lessons on the sampling pads, on the SPDSX and so on. So yeah, it's all out there.
Yeah, there we go, guys. So Michael's obviously one of the forefront runners at Roland. So what he doesn't know about it, nobody knows. And I don't know if anyone knows. No one's actually commented really. This has been here through all the chat shows. This is actually my theatre kit, I call it. It's mesh heads, triggers. It's got the brains,
exactly.
and it's for me when I do. Oh well, this kit now should be in the theatre because obviously come up to pantomime time, which I'm not doing. Oh no, you are. No, I'm not. It's great because obviously they have different, obviously, especially modern songs. Everyone's basically got, it's all up to date, and that's fantastic for that. It's a little Tego kit. Someone asked the other day, what actually kit is it? It's a little Tego kit because I didn't need a big kit. I didn't, it's an 18 by 8 bass drum. So don't need the depth because it's all coming out front of house. Saying guys do the best, send them a signal and off they go. It's just obviously the programming side of it. So yeah, no one's actually noticed that. It's been there for all this time.
Maybe they did notice and just didn't say anything about it.
No, they don't care about me. That's fair enough.
No.
Maybe they did notice it. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. But it's embracing that kind of society. I did embrace it quite a few years ago, and I wish I had more money sometimes, because it's the thing. But it's one of those. It's the horses for courses. Sometimes there's a lot of people saying about some people. Kenneth Everett saying, I have a simple setup with the Western swing band, but if I had a setup of 10 cymbals, I would be over the top. Well, it is for the situation as well, isn't
Exactly.
it? The part I play is to give the band form to work from, and when I lock in with the bass, it just makes me smile on stage. You won't see Terry Bonzio playing for a Western swing band, really, with his kit. He most probably can do very well, but it's he has obviously that massive kit because obviously when he does his stuff, it's
But he's also a solo artist, and it's his signature thing. So it's his concept. So there's no way that drummers should actually rant on him, like they rant on Lars Ulrich, being the founder and the drummer of Metallica. He did an amazing thing. He's doing amazing things as well. Maybe his technique is not like as spectacular as other drummers, but who cares? He's part of a hit machine in metal. He's the owner of the Metallica brand. He's actually the best drummer for Metallica. If you would replace him, the whole sound of Metallica would be gone. And then there's, it's all those people discussing other drummers, like their merits and everything. Part of it is just social media entertainment. It's not really about drumming or music, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's that entertainment value, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's bash on a drummer. It's like, let's bash on a drummer day. And today we're going to go Lars Ulrich. And tomorrow we're going to go, whoever is, who's
You, you know that one, yes, that one.
who else is who would be Lars Ulrich is definitely number 1 or 2, and then who else when female drummers came up, for instance, suddenly people were like, that was on Facebook. When Facebook started, everybody was, she can't play with high heels, man, she needs to have high heels to make a difference. This is complete bullshit, because today there's amazing female drummers making a difference, including female drummers from Europe, by the way. It doesn't have to be Americans all the time either.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of good things. Of course, number 1 bass drummer, Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
That's the oldest cliche of all of them, isn't it?
Exactly, and he's an amazing drummer.
Well, do you know what? I have a stock response to that. If you don't understand Ringo, what you have to do is listen to the Beatles' Decca audition tapes recorded on January 1st, 1962 with Pete Best. And you listen to those one time, and then Ringo will, any issues you might have had, any doubts you might have had about Ringo will completely evaporate, because he made that band a completely different entity.
Mm.
Exactly. And there's so many examples of underestimated musicians, but those musicians themselves, they mostly don't care, because they're like, you know what, I'm doing my thing, I made a difference, thank you very much, I'm so fortunate to be alive and to have made music my profession. And if ever I can get myself in that kind of zen zone, I will be a very happy person, and I already am.
Definitely.
I think a lot of this whole negativity and we've talked Lars and Ringo, they're the 2 classic drummer pylons. I think a lot of that is just people reflecting their own insecurities and
jealousy. Yes, jealousy.
In a non-productive kind of a way, and we've all seen people who do that.
Yeah,
exactly. It's trying to make, I always think that some of those people today, they're bashing on drummers, and tomorrow they will bash on another politician or whatever they don't agree with. It's like a sport, and it's like I say, I think it's mainly just entertainment, social media.
Yeah, and I guess in another way, it's if they're just being keyboard warriors on the internet, it's probably better that they're doing that than they're actually genuinely hurting somebody physically in the real world, either physically or emotionally. So get on with it. Nobody cares.
There's even people discussing, those are the same people that are discussing that Boeing is better than Airbus and vice versa. Who cares? It's passionate engineering with different brands, and they just take you from A to B, like drums do as well. They take you from the beginning to the song till the end of the song, and hopefully you'll be dancing along. So, but it's also sometimes very funny to read those comments, though.
Oh yeah, it is. So everything. It's like when you talk about Airbus and Boeing, it's like one has a yoke, one has a joystick. So what?
Exactly,
it still flies.
Exactly.
It still flies.
It's a never-ending discussion.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending discussion.
It's for me, it's like a never-starting discussion, because I'm just not buying into it.
Yeah.
We just got
try to get two people in a row. One drives a Porsche and the other one drives a Ferrari. There will be a fight.
Yeah, too right. There's a couple of people. Pat Myersfield, thank you very much for watching. Gaynor Armitage, thank you very much for watching, guys. As I say, if you missed out, if you just joined us, thank you very much. Don't miss out on our fantastic offer for the Palace Drum Camp on the 19th and 21st of February 2021. If you are in the Palace Drumming Club group on Facebook, there is a special discount code with a massive whopping discount for the full weekend. So it's live on Zoom, but you'll get a very, very amazing experience, the close experience you most probably hopefully get than actually being at the camp in reality. But Gaynor says, haha, I play in my DMs, heels for dancing. Well, I don't know if you've seen the clip because we talked about these heels, and I think we'll come on to this. Like, Buddy Rich used to play in about sort of 4-inch heels.
Yeah, but look.
That's the style, wasn't it?
Can I just put that away for you very succinctly? Okay.
Yep.
I spent a little bit of time around Buddy. He was he wasn't a tall man. Okay. No. He had that great big canister throne. If you see a shot of him, a side shot of him sitting on that canister throne, he's down there standing up. Why was he down there standing up? Because he started off as a child drummer in vaudeville, where he used to stand up behind the snare drum and play the Stars and Stripes Forever with the snare drum and a bass drum. And these early habits get imprinted very early on. And, Buddy spent the first few years of his life standing up to play. So that was probably, as a formative influence, really, really powerful for him. So when he did finally sit down, he was sitting really quite high. And his posture wasn't great, as I'm sure he himself would have admitted, because he had a number of back problems. But what you're seeing there is the imprinting of formative influences and early habits. As I say, look at a side shot of him. There's lots of them out there, particularly in the later years when he's playing the Radio Kings. And his legs are almost straight. He's virtually standing up. And I think that all comes from childhood, from and that's why. It's as simple as that. That's what that's all about. The things that you do very, very early on, and particularly in your first 7 years of life, you're like a sponge. You're absorbing all these habits. We've all got things that came to us very early in life, and as it so happens, as you, Matt, will know, one of them for me was Buddy Rich, because I grew up in a household where Buddy Rich and Joe Morello are my two forever drummers, because their records were on the stereo all the time when I was a kid. And I thought that was, I listened to pop music as well, but the drums in the pop music meant something completely different to me. There were songs that I liked, but then there was this other thing. And so what happens in the early years of your life, hopefully good, hopefully positive, and sometimes not, sometimes negative and quite damaging, will stay with you and will be imprinted upon you. And this is where a lot of later life psychological issues come from. And that's why Buddy, his posture, and you look how high he had his snare drum. And you look at any picture, I've got a pair of sticks here, his snare drum was like up here. And that comes from childhood, when he was a little boy standing behind the lovely 1922 brass shell snare drum and playing it right up here. And that's where that came from. If his background, if his upbringing had been entirely different, then the results would have been different. That's simple.
Yeah. Colin Humphreys, hello, welcome. Watching Ian Stock, I saw as well. Thank you very much for coming online and joining us tonight. Guys, there's, social media is good. It's good in bed, so basically just makes you go to sleep, doesn't it, sometimes? This is a good one. So Dave said, I love stand-up drumming and running around stage drumming. Rhythm sticks must get a zen at some point. Talking about I think sort of the drummers. There's some of the stick given to Neil Peart when he played jazz was playing nasty. He did a fine job. So there we are. We all have that kind of. Drummers that put down E-drums or even cajons, just jealous. It was a box to you, isn't it, Pete? But cajon.
It serves a purpose.
Yeah, it serves a purpose.
It's not going to replace drumming. Actually, a cajon is a very interesting phenomenon, because with no skill and no training, you can pick one up out of a store and immediately get a sound from it. Okay? And that's what happened. That's what started to happen in the 1980s with technology. funnily enough, I was writing a blog about recording earlier today, and when originally the little electronic machine that played rhythms was a part of like a home keyboard setup that sounded terrible, and then it kind of grew into this sophisticated, mature adult products that made drum patterns. You know, suddenly the programmer became the big guy in the 80s because it made drum patterns accessible and creatable by people who didn't have the training to play the drums. And that was a big win for not only the instrument manufacturers, but all the software companies too. When they, you know, if you've got a product out there and you've got to be a really great trained musician to do anything with it, that's not going to shift as many units. This is just a commercial business logical strategy here. If you've got something that you need, you know, like years and years of musical training to get even any kind of a sound out of it. If you can buy something off the shelf and take it home and plug it in and get something that sounds cool straight away, then that's going to move far more units because it's just much more accessible to people.
Well, can I elaborate a little bit on it? There's two instruments like the cajon and the taiko. The taiko is the Japanese percussion instrument, which is really well known, for instance, from Kodo. And those two are now digitalized. Roland actually put out an electronic cajon a couple of years ago, but they and it's been a big success in Poland, for instance, because Poland has been the biggest selling electronic cajon country in Europe. Hardly any big interest for it in Benelux or the UK. It's mainly Poland because there's a big cajon community over there, but also the electronic taiko, which Roland just developed together also with the guys from Kodo. You know, it just won a design prize in Japan. It's now gonna come over to Europe and being internationally released. And it's amazing that actually those very traditional percussive instruments are also translated into like hybrid kind of versions or completely digital versions. But Pete, I have to say, this is not really, and I know those Roland engineers, this is not really out of commercial purposes, but more about testing new technologies to see if they can invent some new things from very traditional percussive instruments, also to benefit later on for the drummers. So, and on top of that, the biggest challenge with these two instruments is that they're mainly portable. So the next step, when you were actually asking me about where technology evolves to, well, one of the things that people and engineers especially are really looking into is making electronic musical instruments more portable on stage. So this involves, first of all, wireless technology. Second, also triggering technology when you're in the middle of the audience and the audience is cheering, that they actually don't, you know, trigger your sounds while you're in the middle of a crowd. So that's a physical technological challenge, because now, you know, everybody knows when you have an electronic drum set up next to a bass player and the bass player is really loud, there's going to be some sounds that are triggering some of your drum sounds anyway. So that's another challenge. But on top of this, so apart from wireless, but in this wireless environment, you know, let's say a couple of hundred people in a venue where everybody is using a smartphone and Bluetooth and 5G, the next step is gonna be, and I'm sure of it, translating electronic musical performances without latency through a 5G network to a module somewhere on stage. That's what the engineering are now trying to invent or to test. So that's a pure technological thing, but this also brings the percussionists probably in the future some ways to go with their small setups in the middle of the crowd, instead of just being on stage surrounded by people with no cables having to go to the stage or to the stage box, so that PA. So everything wireless, and people moving with their electronic musical percussion instruments around in the crowd and just jamming with the people. That's probably going to be one of the next steps, evolving thanks to the release of these Cajon experiments or Taiko experiments. It's in 10 years, this chat will be totally different.
That's fascinating, and now I know what shares I'm going to be buying when the stock market opens.
Well, it's probably not. It's not about is it going to be a commercial success? No, it's going to be technology which is invented and then will be transferred to other instruments. There used to be a time when everybody thought it was really cool that a guitar player was suddenly going into the crowd and playing wireless, okay? But then, of course, all the official government agencies tried to step in. Hey, there's something really strange happening because this guitar solo is also coming to the police radio. That's actually what happened in the beginning when all the frequencies were just free, and then in the 90s there were some local governments that said, okay, for wireless systems, like for instance also for the big shows now with the vocal wireless microphones and everything, you are only allowed to have this frequency which is authorized by the local authorities. Yeah. So that's going to bring also a lot of challenges. But in the beginning, it was a lot of fun going wireless, and there were actually police patrols in their cars hearing from the guitar solo from the stage, bling, 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 bling at the early days. So that's now all being fixed. But
these things are very cyclical. I can remember my dad was in a band that had a weekend residency in a hotel back in the mid-1970s. And they've been playing in this hotel ballroom for years. And then a taxi firm opened up next door, and the taxi two-way radios used to come over the PA in the hotel. It was they'd be playing some YMCA or something, and then you
exactly
trying to order a cab to go to Leamington Spa.
Exactly. I think. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I think
to me, the whole game-changing thing about the 40-year march of electronics and technology, I think it's just made the whole thing much more accessible to a far broader demographic of people than was the case before. I mean, every big city, major city, they've still got those elite music conservatoires, but the days when you had to go by that pathway to have a career in the music industry is all gone, and I think access has been a very important area of that, and it has been facilitated by a lot of the innovation that we've seen across a lot of different product platforms.
I'm very much convinced that 5G is going to bring something to live shows, much more than any other technology. 5G is going to probably enable the audience to participate in a concert, in a light show, in a live experience like we've never seen before, because everybody has his device, and these devices will all be part of the live shows. And thanks to 5G, the latency will be gone. So I already did some concerts where actually with Milk Inc. It was a big venue show here in Belgium. It was a 20,000 people arena, and we actually made all those lights on their smartphones light up, and they became part of the light show. And this was on 3G network, but 5G is going to be about sound, no latency, video, whatever. Even actually, let's say in a couple of years, people will actually, with their screens, for instance, be a pixel of one big video happening live in a big venue. That's how possible that will be, even in open air. So I can't wait to see this from a stage point of view, from a musician actually triggering all these people's faces and their devices and making them being part of the show. It's going to be an amazing thing.
So I can't wait. So a lot of people are saying about, that they've never used technology, but next year most probably be the year to discover different projects with them, stuff like that. Andy Workman, thank you very much for watching. Coming on, Billy Blankenship, thank you very much for watching. Christopher Dunn, thank you very much for tuning in. Good to see there's no dreaded latency. Well, that's the problem, because obviously, there's only a few things that's actually happened. I think. Technically wise, during the lockdown, so people can actually get together and actually play live. Obviously, if you go back 10 years ago, if we had this lockdown then, I don't think anybody would have survived musically wise.
If we only go back to last year, nobody actually knew about Zoom.
Yeah.
And here we are using Zoom as a non-latent way of communication with so many people.
Yeah. So it's amazing how technology gets. But I'm very interested about obviously all the percussion stuff going, because I've obviously all you guys out there. So I am a percussionist. It just so happens that we do a lot of stuff on here. But I've been in shows, been in theatres and all that kind of stuff when everyone's on wireless, and I'm just going, yeah, hello, I'm stuck at the back.
Exactly.
It's amazing that you can actually do that. I remember a good friend of mine, Simon Limerick, back in the 80s. He's big solo percussionist in the classical field, contemporary. But I've seen a picture of him. We've got loads of different. So I think he's got 4 different setups. He has loads of triggers on him, and they've even got their own aerials. He's got on his legs and his arms. Do you know what I mean? That's and he was doing it back then. So. Technology has always been there, but obviously I suppose it's creativity within that has always been there. It's the technology's basically let us down sometimes because we wanted to go somewhere a bit further, haven't we?
Well, that's the reason why I came out. Can I show you guys something? It's kind of a premiere a little bit. So this is something I co-developed with some friends in Taiwan and Malaysia. It's called the Drum Mix. And it's a dedicated drum mixer to connect to your smartphone and go online, multi-track on Instagram. That's what you can do. So, and it's an analog mixer. It's very small, but it has a 96K USB digital audio output, which directly connects with the camera connection kit, for instance, to an iPhone. And up till now, many people were a little bit stuck while drumming because you needed to use the internal mic or anything, and you couldn't have the kick and the snare separate and maybe the backing track not separate. So I was thinking together with 2 friends, guys, this is not going to go away. We need to come up with something which is kind of portable, easy to use, so people can have a dedicated mixer to go online with socials while just using their smartphone. So that's what triggers it, and maybe some people will be interested, maybe it'll be a failure, but at least I'm using it.
Yeah, I'll say that. Sorry, Pete, did you want to say something? Oh, okay. It's one of those things, obviously, because obviously, Michael, we've had a chat on Instagram before the PD Conversations over on our Palace Drum Clinic site, and it's you have to use your phone. So these mediums, sometimes you can only use your phone. Like Facebook and Skype and Zoom, all kind of stuff. They allow you to actually plug stuff in. So I'm actually going through an interface here. I've got a different camera here. That's why I keep looking down here because everything else here. But this camera here is my is the one I look into because I've got the best kind of camera. So amazing. Do you think most of the stuff that you've come up with is out of necessity rather than it's like a wish list?
No, it's a necessity. No, because I could still do it with just a microphone as a smartphone. But it's more the ambition to make it sound good. I'm also a music producer, and I really take care of sound. And if there's one tip I can give everyone who's watching tonight, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the most successful clips online are the ones that sound good. Sound is actually at least as important as the image, as the video. Except for fail movies, because then just the image can be funny. But when it comes to music, if you have a clip online which sounds good, it will trigger much more people to watch it. And number two, also very important, it's really more easy to share, because you can actually, even if the image is blurry, when it sounds good, it's still music that triggers adrenaline and triggers people to feel what you're saying, more than just a video with a lousy sound. So that's the number one tip for anyone who wants to go online with this drumming. Even an amateur, more advanced drummer, doesn't matter. Make it sound as good as possible, and you'll get some people that appreciate it and maybe share it.
There we go. So everyone out there, make sure your sound's quality before you do all your great stuff out there. Social media.
It doesn't need to be high tech. It just needs, just putting your phone a little bit further away from the snare or the bass drum may already change the sound and make it much more better and less distorting. And people then will start, hey, this sounds nice. Okay, now I can hear the ghost notes and so on. So sound is really important when you go online.
This is one of the things about sound, isn't it? We've talked a lot about Pete, we've talked about a lot. So, you say, and I've used your phrase this week, I hope you don't mind, it's like, your four limbs are like the phases of the mixer kind of thing. You have to make sure they're all, you can actually mix your own kind of sound.
I came up with that years and years and years ago, and I've heard it repeated so many times.
Yeah. But it's so true, but...
Fine. I don't claim any kind of originality. To me, it's just a perfectly common sense thing. As long as people who repeat it understand the implications behind it, then that's just that's just like spreading a little tiny bit of wisdom that will make people understand what it is we have to do in order to sound good as drummers. Before our sound leaves us. Okay. Again, because I had an album come out that I did for somebody else about a week ago, and it made me think about a lot of recordings that I've done in my life and how disappointing some of them were. You go into the studio and you've had that date in your diary for ages, and you really match fit, you're on top of your game, and you make a great performance in the studio, and then but it doesn't end there. Then you finish the session and you go home, and then 6 months later the record comes out, and you think this just sounds awful, because what's happened with the post-production just completely loses the essence of what you were doing. And this is all of the technology implications. Setting that aside, it's very important that we as musicians have a very strongly defined sense of our own sound. What do we sound like? A lot of successful players that I know have spent many years, when Walkmans were the thing, going around with a cassette player, recording all their gigs, or getting desk recordings of all their gigs. Personally, I just rely on what I hear when I play, but it's really important that you have a very strong sense of the sound that you make when you play the instrument. And so often, if the engineer or the producer are not hip to that, you're going to get very badly misrepresented. And I've had some great disappointments where records that I know everybody played great in the studio, and they just come out like kind of lackluster or sometimes quite unpleasant sounding, just because of what's happened in the post-production process. And that's why when I record, the records that I've recorded as a leader, I've never relinquished. I've always had absolute control over the end result, for better or for worse. But when it's my project, I call those shots. Knowing what you sound like is really, and how many of us really know what we sound like? And I do. It's something I've given a lot of thought to, and I think it's something maybe that a lot of players are not so aware of. And again, this is where things like YouTube and Instagram can be really, really beneficial, because you just record yourself in a lot of different environments, different contexts. Upload it. What does it sound like when it comes back to you? And you really learn a lot about your own playing from doing this.
Mm.
As well as getting all kinds of lots of likes and cool comments and things like that, which are nice too. But you can also, if you just kind of look beneath the surface and the obvious sort of gratification of putting up a nice clip on social media, you really learn about your own playing to a significant extent.
Yes. Thanks for that. That's very wise words. The whole kind of sound thing is interesting because obviously, the whole acoustic versus electronic debate, it's a debate that, it's like the Ferrari and the Porsche, isn't it? It will go on forever and ever and ever. But, it's, Michael, just from a point of view, is that, do you see people, because I say there's a lot of people who just, especially like the amateurs, the students, they just have an electronic drum kit. Basically at home, they basically that, and then obviously, for instance, they go to lessons, everything else. They have an acoustic one, and they can't seem to, basically, it's like manage both kind of thing, isn't it? Because obviously, you're very much. Obviously, we know you very much as like the Roland. You play all this kind of stuff, but you've crossed over so many times between acoustic and electronic, and you did the hybrid and everything else. And it's a different beast, isn't it? The whole so. But how is there any kind of methods that you use basically for make sure that when you sit behind an electronic kit, the feel and the touch, is going to be different? Is there a way you actually do that? It's like, is it a technical thing? Is it a mental thing? What is the difference for you?
Well, first of all, for me, there's no difference. I can only be honest, and
Yep.
There's never been a difference. Even when I was starting out playing electronic drums professionally in the beginning of the 90s with the TD7, I was just using the same drumsticks. Even today, many people think that to be able to play an electronic drum set, you need smaller drumsticks or different drumsticks than playing an acoustic drumstick. This is complete bollocks. You use the same tools. Like for instance, with Roland, of course, the pedals and the hi-hat pedal is not delivered with the kit. So I just always used the same exact double pedal, the same exact single kick pedal, the same exact hi-hat stand as I was using with my acoustic set. That is the only difference, is that I have to move it from one set to another set. That's the only effort I need to do. On the other hand, it's also a little bit a question of personality. I don't see any young drummer struggling with the choice between acoustic and electronic, because there's so much music in the charts today which they are listening to. They didn't grow up with Rush or the Beatles. They don't care about those bands we grew up with. They care about the music of today. Can I play this song? And then they play it with an electronic kit, and it just sounds nice because the sound kind of matches, and they're inspired, and they play better when they're inspired. But then they go to the drum lesson, or they just encounter or get to know an acoustic drum set for the first time, and they're like, whoa, this is amazing, this is a lot of noise, and so on. And their body will find the way to actually transfer what they want to express from one set to another. But there's too many people, and there's too many teachers, I think, that are still living in the old days, and they're saying that one would be better than the other one. But if you teach, I think it's very important to place yourself, even especially when you're an older teacher, to place yourself in their position. They are listening to the music of today. Maybe they are fans of K-pop, Korean pop music. Well, let them play Korean pop music, because when they start playing along with that, they will feel motivated. And automatically, when they feel motivated, they will take risks. And when they take risks, they will sit behind an acoustic drum set and just go and discover for themselves. Like Pete was saying, in the first few years of your drumming, you're a sponge. You absorb the most things, like I did as well. And then maybe in a year or so, and when their parents can afford it, they will maybe have an acoustic set and a small electronic set, and they will try to combine it. And that's where the magic happens, you know. So of course, there's a lot of discussion that, man, if you want to play jazz music, you should play acoustic. I totally agree, because a very important part of the art of jazz drumming is interaction with the acoustics, with the acoustic ambience, putting your drum set in the complete 3 dimensions, which you can still not do with electronic drum sets. It's stereo. There will be a time, for instance, where we go Dolby Surround in an electronic drum system, but that's not affordable at this moment. So an important part of the acoustic playing experience and craftsmanship is also putting your sound in an acoustic environment which is totally reacting to what you do, and that's a very important thing. But it's not the one is not better than the other, because another advantage of electronic drums, which you don't have with acoustic drums, is the fact that you have an integrated metronome or music player, and you can actually hear yourself feeling on top of music much more than when you do it on an acoustic drum set. So it's always a balance between both. I can only recommend one thing to all the parents out there who have young children who want to play drums. Adapt the choice of drum set to the situation where you live. Do you live in a house where you have a lot of room, where you can make noise without disturbing the neighbors? Maybe an acoustic drum set would be the good first step. But for all those people where you don't have that possibility, the electronic drum set is a blessing, because you can start playing, and that's the most important thing.
Wise words. Thank you, Michael. Thank you indeed. We have, just go back to Pete. Brian Borowski of Space is saying, Todd Superman from the band Styx talks a lot about what Pete's talking about. I think we talked a lot about that actually when we actually had Todd actually on the PD Chat Show. I think it was back in May time. If you want to see that or anything else that we've seen, obviously it's on the Facebook, but also on the www.PlayerStrongClick.com. It's all on there as well. As I say, this is now, we did 17 episodes in our first series. We're now in our 1, 2, 3. This is our 4th one. Next week, while I'm actually talking about our 5th one, it's going to be no other side, the great the rock band that is Uriah Heep's drummer, Russell Gilbrook. So he'll be here as our special guest next week as well. So there we are. But yeah, so say Todd, it was a great one with Todd. Very jealous of his man cave. I think we were, when we peaked, slightly jealous.
It was pretty impressive.
Absolutely amazing. So, but yes,
look at the property prices where he lives.
Well, yeah, exactly. It beats Surrey, doesn't it? But there we go. So we've got some different instruments. Yeah, so they want something that, Mark King was just saying what Michael does is great, and mentions in his videos that and gets straight into playing without waffling on the beginning, catches your attention immediately. So there we are. So yeah, not a waffler. Actually funny. In his monitors helps, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Also, what's good with the electric, this is from Brian Broski again, what is good with the electric kits? It did some nursing home gigs, and I know they sound crazy, but you have to control the sound because hard-hitting drummers. Yeah, as I say, it's venue, it's horses for courses, we keep saying all this kind of stuff, you play for the music, you choose the things for the music, you won't see, Pete playing in Pizza Express, well, not, don't know if Pizza Express will be there anymore, but sort of Ronnie Scott's, with a great big 24 bass drum if he's playing with a little quartet. It's horses for courses, isn't it? So it's all good. Guys, as always, these things just zoom past. We've only just got over 10 minutes left, so if you've got any more questions to Michael or to ourselves, to Pete and myself, please get them in the comments. If you are still watching, thank you very much. Just let us know. And if you're joining on, make sure obviously you're pressing #replay in the comments so we can see your comments later on. Obviously, we know that you've been watching as well. Michael, what's obviously you said about the whole 5G and everything else, but what is the next thing in drumming?
In the next thing in drumming?
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's the next thing. It might be tomorrow. maybe it's happening now while we are chatting. Someone is putting something online, which is maybe he's naked with one snare drum. I don't know.
That'll be my friend Simon again. I think he's done that one.
I don't know. You know, every day is kind of a surprise. But certainly, electronic music is never gonna go away. You know, when electronic music or program music took over the charts, people were saying this is not going to last a year. Well, it's already been 15 years now. So 85% of all the tunes, all the songs that are in the top 50 charts are program beats. 85%. It used to be in the beginning of the 90s where 85% of the top 50 were actually session play drums or bands just playing, you know, recorded music. That's totally changed, and it's never going to go away anymore. Another thing, maybe radios are going to go away more and more. You know, people will have their own radio on their smartphone just by choosing their own playlists, which is already happening. And that will, of course, transfer to the practice of music, to practicing music. People will try to play along to more alternative things that they discovered themselves. I see this a lot with young people, especially thanks to TikTok. If you look at TikTok, that might be the next thing for drumming too, you know, like some kind of TikTok for drummers. It's already happening, you know. It's like I was just saying, couple of female drummers on there, and one is Santobis, what's her name again? She has 550 million followers on TikTok just playing along to covers. She was just on Dromeo, and the Canadian, she's from Quebec, you know, the French-speaking part of Canada, and they just put a big there's a big promotional campaign going on with her at all the bus stops where she's actually on a big poster and she's saying, I'm from Quebec and I'm a big online success. And this is and she's a female drummer. So 10 years ago, this was not possible. Being a female drummer and a drummer, and then being on a big international, a big national or local promotion campaign saying, I have 550 million, or 550,000, 550,000 followers on TikTok just playing along, being a cover drummer. Wow. What's next? I don't know. I don't know. Right. I have no clue.
It's excuse me. It's one of those. Obviously, the other debate is like, is technology killing live music? Well, if we look at it in that kind of context, it isn't it? It's basically embracing it, but with likes of TikTok, likes of Facebook, Instagram. You know, it's like you can get yourself out there more, can't you, as well?
I'm a witness of it because I toured the world with Netsky for 5 years and a half. You know, we actually were one of the first totally live playing drum and bass bands. You know, together with Pendulum, who were already doing it, but more with an acoustic drum set with KJ on the drums. But Netsky Live, when we started out doing the biggest festivals in the world, we were actually only playing drum and bass completely live with only electronic musical instruments. So this is not going away either. If you look at some of the biggest UK acts like Anne-Marie, you have Ollie Wiseman playing the drums there with a hybrid set. There's not any pop drummer who's just playing an acoustic drum set. It's always hybrid. It's always a combination of pads and technology, maybe enabled on session. Brian Fraser Moore, you know, he did the Super Bowl, halftime show this year with an completely electronic and completely acoustic setup standing side by side. That's and the next thing, it's electronics and acoustics coming together and being friends instead of enemies.
That's it, exactly. I mean, whatever innovation comes out. I mean, some of us on here tonight are old enough to remember the 1980s when people were saying things like, "Oh, Simmons drums, that's it. Acoustic drums, it's all finished." And of course, that was not
Exactly.
But I think what actually happens is that the best of innovation, best of tradition, will always find a way of coexisting side by side.
Same happened with the pianos. The digital piano, when it came to the market, you know, like a couple of decades ago, all the piano teachers were against, you cannot play a digital piano. And the first two guys who actually integrated a synthesizer in their setups were Herbie Hancock and Joe Zawinul. You know, incredible musicians. Herbie Hancock, an incredible jazz player, jazz pianist, and he actually made a roll tune with Rocket, which was a completely electronic track, you know, and it was a big hit in middle of the 80s. And he was just playing jazz.
I mean, even before that, I mean, Thrust was years before that.
Yeah, exactly. And just jazz players putting, like Chick Corea, you know, incredible acoustic piano players, just putting a synthesizer on top of their acoustic piano. That was blasphemy, but everybody liked it. And suddenly people started saying, what are we fighting over? You know, let's just do it as well, because they did it already and they're getting all the stars and stripes. I want to do this as well. So it's the same with drums.
Yeah. So, guys, if you're out there, as I say, excuse me, Richie Burns has actually said, as an acoustic touring drummer, I found tonight very interesting. Thank you, guys. Most interesting. Well, it is, because obviously, you know, it's if you do your job as a drummer and literally just play an acoustic set, and that basically requires just acoustic set, then obviously you're not going to know. But it's, you know, I think the major kind of thing throughout this lockdown is that the sales of electronics, especially recording equipment, has gone through the roof. You know, people are embracing. And one thing that we're going to be doing at the Palace Drum Clinic, obviously we will set up, and we will still get back to, is obviously those live clinics bringing you the artist. You see, you know, it's that interactive. You're there right in front of them. You can ask the questions. You can meet them. You can chat with them. And we will be doing it. But everything that we'll be doing, because obviously, you know, we've learned our new skills here during the lockdown, is that everything's going to be streamed. Obviously, it'll be for like a membership, you know, sort of pay per view kind of thing. But you know, we're embracing that as the Palace Drum Clinic, because it's more reach. You can get more reach and get yourself out there a little bit, obviously, with the TikToks and the Instagram stuff like that. And you know, Pete, would you ever think about, obviously, if and when we can, obviously, financially, venues and all that kind of stuff, in the end, is bring your big band back and have literally a streaming gig? Was that sort of thing that would interest you to sort of widen your audience base to get to that gig?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. You know, you don't practice your art form as a musician for all these years and put a band together and get a whole load of music written and rehearsed in order for it to be a secret. Of course not. Absolutely, yeah. Visibility is everything. And you know, whatever the way forward is to sustain that, then you know, ideally, I'm a live acoustic player. I like to play in small rooms. I like to play in rooms that have naturally good acoustics, not arenas. But you know, there's always got to be an alternative. You've always got to be looking at what's opening up and developing right now, and taking that on board in order to make what I've spent an entire career doing sustainable for the future.
Definitely.
I'm not going to sit on my hands out of some kind of misguided loyalty to an old way of doing things. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Pete, and also streaming is never going to go away anymore. You know, it'll be coexisting with when the live shows start again. You know, streaming is not going to stop when the live shows start again. On the contrary, the live shows will be even more exploding because everybody's so eager to get out to a concert again. Yeah. And on the other hand, you know, if they can make it, they will be very happy with streaming. In the past, streaming is not the same experience. Now it needs to be the same experience because there's nothing else. So those two things are going to come together, and live concerts will be streamed as well.
Yeah. And I think I had an industry talk on Monday with a few guys, and you have to embrace this, and to be honest, if you can catch a big audience, you're sharing enjoyment and everything else to a wider people. So it's here to stay. So guys, if you are a little bit, I suppose the word that technophobe, so I doesn't understand it. Please just look into it. Look at stuff that Michael's done, literally just for the drums, just particularly. But there's many people out there. So when this first started back in April, I spent 2 days learning how to basically make sure that everything was hunky-dory on Zoom before stream and everything else, and it just keeps getting better. I've discovered new things, and obviously for the camp. Talking about the camp, 19th and 21st of February, we will be doing all this streaming stuff actually online with the actual PD camp. So please sign up, because obviously you don't want to lose out on a fantastic weekend of some amazing drummers and tutors, including obviously Pete Cater, Rob Bryan, Ian Palmer, Gary Alcock and myself, but it will all be basically available in your front room, and this is, I think, where we'll be able to go. If people can't get to the Mount, Muhammad will come to you, basically, kind of thing. So that's what we're going to bring everything into your front room, so you don't have to do anything. But when we can, it'd be nice for you to see us in face to face. So, guys, it's been an amazing time. Got some lovely comments. It's Jesse Purdon. Thanks for joining so late. Put hashtag replay if you're watching this right at the very end. But thanks very much for joining. Follow us on the obviously Facebook side of it. You'll see lots and lots of stuff we've been talking about. Loads of different chat shows. Obviously, we're in the second series there. We have the PD countdown as well. And obviously, over on Instagram, we do have the conversation, PD conversation. That's only half an hour long. We did one a few weeks back with Michael. Very, very interesting one there. And lots of stuff coming up as well. So, great show tonight, Michael. It's so enthusiastic. Gives me new ideas. As a pensioner, wow, it's the future. Cannot wait to see it. It's a pension. Yeah! So there we are. So breaking the age boundaries down there. But as I say, it's you can always teach old dog new tricks. I can definitely guarantee that, because I'm teaching my dog to get off the sofa at the moment.
This is an incredible thing. People that are already in their pension just playing along to Instagram and to Spotify. What could be better for music than this? Yeah.
Amazing. So, Mark King, thanks tonight. Really enjoyed it. Joe Morris, thanks, guys. Take care. So, thanks very much for watching. Again, if you're interested in more, just look at all the stuff on the Facebook page. Join the Palace Drumming group, Palace Drumming Club. Also, you can get the discount for the Palace Drum Camp in February. And please go and embrace everything's out there, because I can guarantee it's definitely here to stay. Tim Mackerel, thank you for watching, but you're too late. But you can always catch us on replay, and I generally put it on the on my YouTube site 24 hours after the end. So, guys, thank you ever so much. I'd just like to say, obviously, again, to Pete, thank you very so much for being the rock that is and the PDC. And Michael, thank you ever so much for your wisdom, enthusiasticness, and also timing as well. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Thanks for the invitation.
Oh no, I was to say, again, when we chat on Instagram, I don't think this will be the last time. Hopefully we'll see Michael anything to do with the Palace Drum Clinic. So, but hopefully we'll be back very shortly. Hopefully in physical person. So that'll be absolutely fantastic if we can get there. So, guys, thanks for tonight, boys. Thanks everyone. Claudine, so thanks. Cheers, chaps. Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you, because obviously, if it weren't for you, we'd just be talking to ourselves. I say it every week. We don't mind. We do have a good conversation. But it's nice to be able to get out to you guys as well. So stay safe, everyone. I know things are going to be opening up very shortly over in the UK. But stay safe. But we will be back next week at 8:30 on Facebook with Russell Gilbrook. So Uriah Heep. If you want to know everything about Uriah Heep, and I think we'll be talking about what actually happens when you're on tour and at gigs and stuff like that. It's a very, very interesting conversation to have.
Because start a little bit later in that case.
Start a bit later. Should start early and have a break in the middle, maybe.
Does it include pictures as well?
So, say what again? Sorry.
Is he going to include his touring pictures as well?
I don't know. As long as they're clean ones, maybe. I don't know. So there we are. But
I think there may need to be a content warning on that one.
yeah, maybe slightly. Yeah, so maybe
I'm joining.
Okay, well, let's see. But again, see you guys next week, and yeah, please stay safe, and we'll see you again on another PD Chat Show. Thanks very much. Stay safe.
Yes,
See you
man.
again.
See you,
Bye-bye.
Steve. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Cheers.